Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. This is me, your host, Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. For people who are tuning in for the first time, we thank you. We appreciate you. We hope you come back. For the people that tune in regularly, I tell you, I appreciate you, and I hope that you continue with your support. Today's topic, brothers and sisters, I'm putting it on the screen. It's been burning in me for quite a long time. And this topic, brothers and sisters, in these times between COVID, between job loss, between everything else that's going on, I believe that we need to do away with everything. Don't wait for the government. Don't wait for vaccination. Don't do any of that, brothers and sisters. I'm saying today that everyone needs to embrace their inner SIG. SIG stands for Spiritual Inner Gangster. You've been feeling that feeling boiling up inside of you. Sometimes you think it's frustration. Sometimes you think it's a voice in my head. No, that's your inner gangster saying it's time to get off the sidelines and get into action. The world is out of whack, and only spiritual mind and spiritual minded people can pull it back together again. I don't know what happened, brothers and sisters. I have no idea what happened, brothers and sisters, but at some point in time, spirituality jumped off, if you will. Spirituality jumped off and we took a break. Someone said it was all right to deal with these folks who have absolutely no spiritual impetus. They have absolutely no care for the young man or the black man or the spiritual man or the human man. They don't worry about it. And even with these protest movements, the spirituality is missing. So I'm telling everybody, dig down deep inside of you. Find that corner of say what and hell to the no. And bring that little person out. Every once in a while, bring them out, put them in the light, dust them off because they need you right now. The spiritual inner gangster is a thing, brothers and sisters, that's changed history. It's allowed you to get from point A to point B and your parents to get from point A to point B too. And I'm saying, why is it important? Because we live in a world that has no value for spiritual thought and spiritual expression. Yes, Ms. Farrakhan was correct when he said they took the prayer out of school. It wasn't that they took the prayer out of school, but they took the option for prayer out of school and gave us nothing. Here we are right now in 2020. People are talking about vaccines. People are talking about COVID, but people are not talking about being spiritually connected in a time of crisis. And I'm saying, doggone, these days, it's okay to be a little bit aggressive with your spiritual inner gangster. Because I don't know what happened. Some people take the spiritual inner gangster for a mark. They take him to be punkified. They bully the spiritual inner gangster. This cannot happen, brothers and sisters. This is the last bastion of reality and reason. Sometimes you gotta say, you're stupid. Sometimes you gotta say, medically, you're crazy. Some people ask questions knowing they don't want to engage with that spiritual inner gangster because that's too much truth for them. It's too much reality for them. Every once in a while, it jumps out and it's going to be inappropriate. It's okay if it's inappropriate because sometimes you can take that genie and put it back in the lamp. It's all right. I have normally said to somebody in a very clear and loving voice when I felt like I was disrespected, I said, don't ever do that again. Because if it ever happens, I'm probably going to choke you out in front of your kids. He said, I don't have kids. I said, no problem. I'll wait. Why is this important, brothers and sisters? Because love is missing. Care is missing. Mercy is missing. Compassion is missing. Because everyone knows that with your spiritual inner gangster, all you're trying to do is get back to a place of peace, a place of resolve, a place of safety, a place of creative interchange. You want to talk to your creator and you want it to be unimpeded, but sometimes you got to fight to get there. And that is the challenge of the spiritual inner gangster. You got to work through so much muck and wallow in your lives and in your own thoughts that sometimes it feels like, do I even have a shot? Is there a place for me? I was talking to a brother last night, and he said we're like gangsters. He said the spiritual inner gangster, just that word, if you will. It's almost like we're dinosaurs. We're prehistoric. Like spirituality in the world has a place, but it's strictly in religion. It's strictly in religion. I have to say, man, that made me worry. The idea that spirituality is strictly in religion made me worry because it means that we can't separate the religion from the exercise, the outgrowth of it. And people beginning to see that. I myself, I consider myself a religious man, but I also consider myself a spiritual man because sometimes there's some things in terms of religion that just can't be explained. And that's that higher level, that spiritual connectedness, that spiritual level. I call it my spiritual inner gangster because it's got me out of a whole lot of things. It's got me into some trouble, but it was good trouble. When I say good trouble, it meant that I was facing up to some things that would bother me. I was stepping out on faith. In fact, people, don't step out on faith. For all my religious people watching, stop stepping out on faith in Allah. Start stepping out on faith in God. Faith in God. Not that faith, I'm sorry, trust. Get back to trust. Because that's one thing about a spiritual inner gangster. You trust that person. You absolutely trust that person. And as I engage my own SIG, if you will, things begin to look different. The world begins to look different. It's not so scary. You know why? Because people are telling you to be scared. And the danger of you engaging your spiritual inner gangster is that environments around you are going to change. People are going to look at you different. They're going to say your name a little bit different. And in conversations when you're not there, they're going to talk about you differently because you're carrying a different type of fire. It's a fire that can't be put out. It's a fire that can't be put out by fear, weird recompense, or anything like that. It is a fire, brothers and sisters, that is your natural born elegance. Now, I don't want to say elegance, but your natural born excellence. This is the thing that people fear. And I've watched since January, this whole COVID-19 thing walk out. And what I watched was people inside who were very empty talking to people who, on spiritual nature, are very full. We're very allowing. But I'm just saying at some point in time, that SIG's got to step up, folks. Mine's got to come out, yours got to come out, and we have to coalesce. We have to come together and have a meeting of the spirits and talk about some of the things that are happening today. I know, I don't say I know, but I know that a lot of people don't like what I'm saying right now because I'm telling you to go away from the government and what they tell you, go away from the scientists and what they tell you. You know what? All that stuff is information. But the spiritual inner gangster is interesting because we look at information connected to intent. And I'm telling folks, look at information, seriously, look at information that's connected to intent. Why are they telling you things? Because it's meant, for lack of a better word, to break or compromise your spirit. It happens to all of us. The biggest targets in the world, hey, what's going on? Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The biggest hustle in the world is breaking people's spirits. And it hasn't worked. Back in the times of slavery, it was not breaking a slave to make a slave. It was breaking their spirit. How can I break their spirit? And you know what? That spiritual inner gangster was much more complicated, much tougher, much more defined, much more relevant than what I'm talking about today. We have the opportunity and the time to work on our spiritual inner gangster, to work on that spirituality, if you will. Back in the day, they didn't. My grandfather didn't have it. My grandmother didn't have it. And neither did their parents before them. But we're in a situation, brothers and sisters, where the world is in such a topsy-turvy type of situation that it's easy to pick out the winners and the losers, the fakers and the real people. I remember telling folks a couple shows ago about Hollywood. Hollywood is broken down into two different people. For the spiritual gangster, the spiritual inner gangster, we break it down the same way. There are people who are buyers and there are people who are sellers. The problem is there are not enough buyers in the world, the people that really make the decisions. So what you do is you have an overrun of sellers who like to tell you that they're buyers, like to posture themselves like they're buyers, but they're not buyers. Let me tell you about your spiritual inner gangster. Your SIG by nature is a buyer. You're a buyer. You're not a seller. You're a buyer. You're not a seller. People are not going to pull things over on your eyes as they would other folks. You know the worst part about being an SIG? I'm going to tell you the worst part. People won't do anything hoping that you're going to do the right thing. And I would encourage all of us, yes, aspire to do the right thing. But don't do it quietly. Don't do it like you're doing someone else a favor. Don't do it to a situation where people are taking advantage of your elevated understanding and awareness of things. Let people know, hey, my SIG ain't for you like that. And I'm going to let it go this time. But next time, it's going to be some words and some furniture moving per se. So, Preach, who are some of your favorite people who've shown you, of course, your spiritual inner gangster? SIGs, of course, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Malcolm X, definitely. Elijah Muhammad, definitely. Man Wolf Dean Muhammad, definitely. Comedians, George Carlin, definitely. Pryor, Fox, even Cosby to an extent. Dick Gregory. And I could keep the list going because all of them had different experiences in their life. Some of them had a lot of struggles, tribulations. Some people went on to do great things. Some people you might even know about. One of my biggest, I want you to make dua for him. You know, one of my biggest SIG examples is a man named Reginald Kitchen. And I want you to pray for Brother Reginald because, you know, he has issues with kidney disease. One of the biggest SIGs I ever seen walk the earth. And this guy did it with class and finesse to the point where all the haters and the distractors would just leave his presence. And I want all of you to enjoy that with your spiritual inner gangster. I want you to enjoy the fact when you walk into a room of people who don't do anything, they're not that creative, they're not that smart, they're haters. I want you to enjoy the feeling when you walk in the room and they get up and leave because they don't want to be around you. That heat is just too hot. It's too intense. So what am I saying, folks? Am I advocating for some type of aggressive mandate for your spiritual inner gangster? Hell yeah. You ain't going to get locked up for being spiritually in tune. Go for it. Because the world has gotten to their minds that spiritual people are soft. Spiritual people are somehow not there. Let's see here. You said, what about Paul Mooney? We could talk about that one. We could talk. I know Paul Mooney. I met him before, worked with him. So we could talk about that one. But landmark folks, in your own house, in your own family, who are some of the people, let me ask Mr. Noise, who are some of the people that you knew personally who had that strong spiritual inner gangster? I'm going to ask the same thing for Miss Santiago. Santiago. Who are some of the people in your life who had that strong spiritual inner gangster? I'm going to say my mother, definitely. My dad was just a gangster. My grandmother, most of the women on my mother's side of the family had it, and on my father's side of the family had it. My teachers, one of the first example of a great example of a person with a strong spiritual inner gangster was a woman named Miss Alveda Jones. She was my 6th grade teacher. I'm going to tell you how gangster she was. She was my 6th grade teacher. Now, this is when busing was happening, and I'm just going to be real talk. Okay, cool. Oh, okay, man. All right. That's how we met. Alhamdulillah. Yes. Okay. Thank you, brother. Miss Alveda Jones was one of the, she was from the old Black Teachers College. And when she taught 6th grade, everyone's afraid of her. Like when you found out at the end of 5th grade, you got your report card and they told you who your teacher was going to be the next year. Me and my play brother Rick, we opened it up. We both had Miss Jones, and that was the first time I'd ever cried without somebody losing their life or taking a whooping. That aside, she was spiritually in tune to the point that she understood the scope of education and how it would raise us up. And she challenged us on those merits, not just education, but she challenged us to understand the purpose of education, number one, and the potential of education, number two. So by the time I finished sixth grade, I pretty much knew that I was going to go. I was going to go to college and I was going to graduate because she had laid a very, very clear path that allowed for me to grow my own valuation along the way. Spiritual Inner Gangsters, SIGs, Imam Worthy Muhammad, another one. There would be no Allah Made Me Funny without Imam Worthy Muhammad, Dick Gregory, and George Lopez. All of them in their own space had to develop that internal thing. You see George Lopez on TV now, Netflix, stuff like that. But this was the early days when I used to tour Lopez and we used to do door deals. And I was the spiritual inner gangster for both of us in some regards, but it brushed off. He showed me about performing and being aggressive about what I wanted. And I showed him about the other side, the compassionate side, about let's be ethical about what we're doing and how we treat people. Great balance. Dick Gregory was the same thing. Dick Gregory showed me elegance when confronting authority. And there's going to be in comedy, I'm sorry, there's no other bigger spiritual inner gangster that ever walked the earth other than Mr. Dick Gregory, because nobody touched him. His pathway touched Richard Pryor. His pathway touched a host of people that came up. So I'm thinking about that as well. But I don't want to get off the point. There's certain things you need to be looking for to embrace your spiritual inner gangster. Number one, you got to love yourself. You got to love yourself to the point that improvement is not something you think about. Improvement is something that's internal. That's number one. Number two, your spiritual inner gangster has to love you. Meaning when it has a conversation with you about things in your heart, in your mind, it's a loving conversation. It's not a condemnation. We hear talk about spiritual and illness and things like that. That person has to love you. And number three, it has to be scalable. Meaning that your spiritual inner gangster has to be able to react and engage in different situations in your life, in your work, in your job pursuits, in your education, in your finances. It has to permeate that type of thing because the world is not going to nourish your spiritual appetites. It's not going to nourish your spiritual needs. That's not what the world is here for. It's the exact opposite. It's here to test it. It's here to make sure that, you heard the thing, steel sharpens steel. Well, it's not exactly steel, but it does sharpen you. And when we begin to look for it, particularly in these particular times, if you will, it is the necessity to build a coalition of people who are spiritually like-minded, not necessarily politically like-minded. That might be one of the problems with Black Lives Matter. And I'm not bashing Black Lives Matter, but we'll call it is. Is it spiritually rooted? The answer is no. I don't see it from my point of view. Thus, I feel like when it gets to a moment of truth where spirituality and ethical treatment has to appear, it could be problematic. That's why you never ever have an idea. You never really think or worry about white supremacy being ethical or being spiritual. Even though they bring in religion to it, it's so far flung, that it's none of the above. If you ever want to have fun, go to YouTube and bring up the old KKK speeches and listen to them talk about Jesus. Listen to them talk about Jesus. They talk about Jesus so crazy. Jesus was hanging. He looked like he was going to come down and smack somebody. They had awoken his SIG. So, but my point is, and I do have a point, we have to raise up. We have to bring a spiritual component to the things that we're seeing right now. And maybe it's because, with Obama, 8 years, we got a little lazy because it's changed and things like that. But we're dealing with a whole different animal now. You've gone from spiritual to non-spiritual. You've gone from go to church every day to stand in front of a church with the Bible the wrong way. You've seen, if you will, a pattern, a pattern and a presentation of behavior that's condescending, behavior that's demeaning, behavior that's dehumanizing, behavior that leads people to do things outside of their normal nature. Behavior, if you will, that allows folks to put other people in positions where they're not safe. And I'm not saying your spiritual inner gangster needs to put on a cape and fly. No, I'm not saying that. But it needs to bubble up more. And we need to speak up more. I say we need to speak up in these protests. Where's the spiritual person at the protest? See, back in the day, you always had a spiritual person on board. You know, somebody who started the protest with a prayer. You notice I haven't seen a protest start with a prayer. I think the only thing I saw was at a funeral, it has to start with a prayer. But think about that. Think about the fact that spirituality is it's in an abyss, if you will, and folks are not grabbing a hold of it. Now, people, I just want to pop on a little thing for us. I'm happy to say that we have a first sponsor. Put them on the screen right here. Tarif Attar. These are people, the finest oils that you can get a hand of. I'm talking about, I smell good, folks. Like, I smell extremely good right now. And it comes in this lovely blue bag. It's almost, I'm talking about, let me show you what the bag it came in, you know. Let me show you guys the bag that it came in, just for a moment. Indulge me. Okay. And I'm only bringing this up because these oils and scents are amazing. Number one, and I'm trying to prime the pump because, brothers and sisters, as a little token, I'm going to, on certain days, I'm going to be giving out these oils because I appreciate you guys coming and I appreciate Tarif Attar supporting me. Can you smell this? Let's smell that. Can you smell it? Can you smell it? It is that smell like new money right there. Can you smell that? Okay, that's enough smell. Listen, I didn't even rehearse that. Listen, my point of the matter is, side note, step back from the SIG topic. Side note, man, I just want to thank people for supporting me and coming on the telecast. You didn't have to do that. I mean, I know 5 o'clock is not a great time for a lot of folks. And the show's going to change because I want to be able to give back to you outside just yelling at the screen. And I want everybody to feel like this is a safe space. The ShOUT show, brothers and sisters, is a safe space. While I may be speaking and we will be having more guests on, you already know that, like Imam Zayd, people like that. I want you to come here, and then even in the chat room, in the comment section, I want you to feel like whatever you have to say, you feel free. If you ever notice, when you come into the comment section, I just throw you up because my house is your house. And I want all of us, if you will. What's going on, brother? Well, I'm doing groovy, man. I got new oil for an oil sponsor. I'm talking to people about embracing their spiritual inner gangster. You need to do it too. I'm telling people, bring that inner gangster out. We need it. The world needs your spiritual inner gangster. But on the real side, you know what? For all the things that are going on in the world, what you guys notice is every day I come on this show, I'm happy and I'm blessed and I'm thankful. And one of the reasons I'm happy, thankful, and blessed is because you guys tune in, you share your thoughts, you share your comments, and you share your time. And in a very, very amazing way, you've allowed me on a daily basis to embrace my spiritual inner gangster and bring it to this show, this project called the ShOUT Show. Now, I show you the oil. I got a lot of oil. I like Ali Sadiq's oil too. I got a lot of oil, but I got a lot of thanks, a lot of gratitude. Don't suppress your spiritual inner gangster. It loves you and you love it. You need a conversation. You need time to just communicate and congregate in that space. And I hope when you come back to the show, you don't come back by yourself. I'm going to ask everybody to share this particular episode of the Shout Out Show. Push the share button, share it out. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I believe myself and people like you, we can make a difference. So share it out. And we're going to make this show something special. And inshallah, I'll be giving you guys some information about how to get free oil or 20% off oil or whatever. Because I just appreciate you. I'm running over a little bit, folks. And I want to thank you for allowing me to run over. I will see you tomorrow. We are the only, do you know how crazy this is? We are the only live stream that goes 7 days a week. Did you guys know that? Did you know we go 7 days a week? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I am like the live stream Waffle House. I never close. And this is amazing. So I'm going to see you guys a little bit later tomorrow. We're going to have some fun tomorrow. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to have some fun tomorrow. I do know what we're going to do, but I hope that you're going to tune in, and I appreciate you guys coming. Preacher Moss, Shout Out Show. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. See ya tomorrow.